Right now, what we're going to do is turn to the book of Deuteronomy. And I have a whole lot to go through. The Lord has been downloading things on my brain. It's interesting how he works. But he has been downloading, and I want to make sure I restate what he has told me to say. Book of Deuteronomy. This is the fifth book in the Bible in the Old Testament section. If you don't know where it is, go to the table of contents. Table of contents, you will find that it's in the Old Testament section. The first book is Genesis. Then it's Exodus. Then it's Leviticus. Then it's Numbers. Then the fifth book is Deuteronomy. Once you're there, turn to the fourth chapter. Deuteronomy, the fourth chapter, that's the big number 4. And then what we will do is read the 15th through the 18th verses. I will, in the time that we have, I'm just going to go ahead and read those verses, but we will be covering quite a bit more. The book of Deuteronomy, 4th chapter, 15th through 18th verses. I'm going to go ahead out of the Christian Standard Bible version. We'll read as follows. It says, verse 15, diligently watch yourselves, because you did not see any form on the day the Lord spoke to you out of the fire at Horeb. Verse 16, so you don't act corruptly and make an idol for yourselves in the shape of any figure, a male or female form, or the form of any animal on the earth, any winged creature that flies in the sky, any creature that crawls on the ground, or any fish in the waters under the earth. Lord, help me. The topic I want to come to you, or want to present to you today, is this idea of a black Jesus. Black Jesus. Please, you may be seated. Black Jesus. What does Jesus look like? That has been the age-old question. What does he actually look like? And I went on the internet, because the internet has the answer to everything, right? And on the internet, you'll find there's a whole lot of different pictures. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I will go through some that I found. There was a painting of Jesus done in Italy in the 5th century. That's what Jesus looked like to the painter in Italy. Then Jesus looked like this to the painter in Turkey centuries later. Jesus looked like this in Greece. A little different, more kind of a more narrow face. Ethiopia had Jesus with a slight little half row. Mexico, there was a rendition of Jesus there. South Korea has Jesus in the South Korean style. India has Jesus looking Indian. And then there was an artistic rendering and modeling done here in the U.S. I believe it was in the U.S. Don't quote me on that part. But there was a guy that took a skull from that time, a Jewish skull from that time, and did what he could to recreate. It wasn't Jesus' skull, obviously, because Jesus, surprise, surprise, he rose from the dead, so none of his bones are here. But this was another skull, and he did his own rendition based off of what the scripture said and what people looked like at that time. So many people would say that this is something like what Jesus would have looked like. And then we have Black America. We have this version of Jesus. And the question I'm going to present to you today is why we shouldn't be attached to this. Why should Christians not attach themselves to a picture of Jesus? Now, I'm not saying that it's wrong to make these images. I'm not saying that it's wrong to do that. But what I'm saying is there's a point where people get attached to the point where that's Jesus. And I don't know what everybody else is doing, but this is Jesus. And don't bring me any of those other photos because this is Jesus. And for those of us who have been around for some time, we know that there are some religions that are based around the race of Jesus Christ. So why should we not attach ourselves to a picture of this? And this is part of where Paul is coming from. In the book of Deuteronomy, it's Black History Month for us, and Moses was having his own version of Black history. In fact, it was Jewish history at that time. Deuteronomy 4. This is to the next generation that is getting ready to go into the land and conquer and take over the promised land. Moses is telling them and reminding them from where they came. He's reminding them that God has brought them from a mighty long way. And for African Americans, this is a month for us and those who are not African American to know that God has brought us from a mighty long way. So it's in this spirit that Moses, right before he gets ready to tell the Israelites how to behave and give them the law a second time, which, by the way, is what Deuteronomy means. It means second law, because he's giving the law a second time. Right before Moses is getting ready to give this, he gives this warning. He gives this warning. And right before we get into the warning, there's 3 points that we're going to look at. One of the warnings, one of the reasons why Christians should not attach themselves to a picture of Jesus is that, one, God can't be reduced to a picture. God cannot be reduced to a picture. Verse 15, Deuteronomy 4th chapter 15th verse, it says, diligently watch yourselves. Look here. Because you did not see any form on the day the Lord spoke to you out of the fire at Horeb. And this is referring to when the 10 commandments were given. You can read this in Exodus 19. The Lord appeared as an all-consuming fire, scared the Israelites. But then Moses walked up into the mountain with the Lord, and that's where he got the law the first time. But Moses is reminding the people, you didn't see any form. You didn't see a shape. You didn't see what God looked like when all that happened. Verse 16. So and the reason why God didn't come in a form. Verse 16. So you don't act corruptly and make an idol for yourselves in the shape of any figure. A male or female form. Hello? Verse 17. Or the form of any animal on the earth, any winged creature that flies in the sky, any creature that crawls on the ground, or any fish in the waters under the earth. One of the main points that Moses is bringing up is that the Creator cannot be limited to one of his creations. Haven't you noticed that in funerals, we usually have more than one picture of a person? Have y'all noticed that? There's more than one picture of a person that's presented. And the reason we do that is because we want people to know that they were more than just that picture. That one picture was not enough. And it's funny how we know this to be true with people, but we don't know this to be true with God. But getting back to this creator, that he can't be limited to one of his creations. John, the 4th chapter, the 24th verse reads, it says, God is spirit. And this is Jesus talking. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and in truth. Why is this important? Because when we are talking about idolatry, idolatry is simply worshiping an image. Idolatry can be worshiping the actual image, or more commonly, worshiping what the image represents. So I could take this book and say this book is a God in and of itself, or I could say that this book represents the God of knowledge and learning and education. It's all idolatry. Why is this important? Idolatry indicates a lack of faith in God, because God is spirit. God is not a fish. God is not a bird. God is not even simply a man or a woman. But in his essence, God is spirit. It indicates a lack of faith in God because we know that faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things unseen. Idolatry is the opposite. It's evidenced by what you see. So it means that the invisible God, it's too hard for us to believe in the invisible spirit, the invisible God. So in fact, what we have to do with idolatry is make something physical so that we can understand and relate. This was the problem with the Israelites with the golden calf when they were getting the 10 Commandments. When Moses was getting the 10 Commandments the first time, he came down and the Israelites had built a golden calf. And the reason why that happened was because not that the Israelites just suddenly forgot what happened when the Red Sea and the Egyptians, but the Israelites needed something that they could see to say, that is God. That is who I worship. That is who I serve. They needed an image. So idolatry is the opposite of faith. It's evidenced by things seen. See, the problem with us is that we don't like having to have faith. We like to see something. We like something in front of us. So when this idea comes of Jesus Christ, we need to see Jesus Christ. It's not enough to preach about them. It's not enough to read about them. It's not enough to believe in them. We have to see with our own eyes what Jesus looks like. We don't like having faith. We don't like trusting something or someone we cannot see. And so the reason I say this is because we ought to be careful of worshiping an image of Jesus rather than Jesus himself. You know when you are attached, you know when you're worshiping the image? It's when art becomes truth. It's when you become insistent on a certain image of Jesus. It's when you're insistent that he has to look African American, or he has to look Mexican, or he has to look Indian, or he has to look white. He has to look a certain way for you to trust and believe in Jesus Christ. What's happening is that you have made the image of Jesus an idol. And we know that God forbids idols. We have done that. We have done that. We have become too attached to the image when art becomes truth. We're insistent on a certain image of Jesus. In fact, as Christians, we should really be insistent on no images of Jesus Christ. Let's play this out. If Jesus really wanted an image of himself, he would have told his followers to make one. But Jesus chooses to be remembered through communion. He chooses to be remembered through the word of God. He chooses to be remembered through the things that he has said. But Jesus Christ has never told any culture, anybody to make an image of him. In a day where they were making images of people, in a day where they made sculptures and they made statues, Jesus could have done that to say, this is what I look like, and everybody needs to get on the same page, but he specifically chose not to. If he wanted it, he would have done it. The Jews knew in that day it would be a sin to do that. Even though that image would have been the best image. So we ought to, and when I say we, again, this is directed toward black people, but this is for everybody. We ought to leave it at art. Don't worship art. And just like Moses is alluding to, God is creative. His creation is his art. Don't worship the art. Worship the artist. Keep moving. God cannot be reduced to a picture. That's one reason. But another reason why we should not attach ourselves to a picture of Jesus. Because this picture does not benefit everyone. Verse 19. When you look to the heavens and see the sun, moon, and stars, all the stars in the sky, do not be led astray to bow and worship to them and serve them. Look at this. The Lord your God has provided them for all people everywhere under heaven. Now, I was a little confused when I read that. I didn't really understand how that really advanced the argument. But God reminded me that he loves diversity. It's reflected in his creation. We just got done saying that God is an artist. He celebrates diversity. Diversity is a good thing. Now, speaking from the perspective of some black people, our primary issue with a quote-unquote white Jesus is not necessarily historical accuracy. It may seem like it, but that's not really what drives some of us. Our primary issue with a white Jesus is not necessarily historical accuracy, but that, to some, it is a reminder of oppression. It benefited certain white people to push a white Jesus, which is why many people call it the white man's religion. It's marketing. And here's how the devil works. Not only did the devil do that, but then he instigated the rubber band effect. Because you have this image of a white Jesus, and then some of us want to rebel against that image so bad that we create another image. But here is the problem. God created skin color because he is diverse. He loves diversity. Let me say it like this. Creation is for our benefit, not our bondage. So since we've rebelled against the white Jesus, and again, this is for some people, not all people, but some rebelled against the white Jesus, and some of us want to uphold the black Jesus and worship the black Jesus, we're doing the wrong thing. We're going against what God intended for racial diversity. God intended diversity in skin color to benefit society, not for us to become in bondage to it. What is this month about? It's about those that were of a certain race, a certain, let's say even to a degree, a skin tone, and how we benefited society. That's what Black History Month is about. It's not about how we're the best. It's not about how God prefers us. It's about our contributions to America and what God has done through us as African Americans. So see, the problem is when we force an image of Black Jesus, we have become what we hate. When we force people to believe that Jesus was Black, we are no different than the people who tried to force on us that Jesus was white. We're no different. We would have become a people who uses Jesus to advance the interests of Black people. Does that sound familiar? But then again, this is the point I'm trying to get to. This doesn't benefit everybody. How does pushing a Black Jesus help Mexicans? How does repeating over and over that Jesus had dreads, how is that helping Asians out? What this does is it helps exalt ourselves, because some of us can go around and say, well, we're made in the image of God. But, Black folks, we really made in the image of God. We get to exalt ourselves a little bit. We get to feel better. We get to strut around with our chest out a little bit. It's selfish, just like our oppressors. Let me keep moving. The last reason why Christians should not attach themselves to a picture of Jesus is that it takes glory from the Lord. It takes glory from the Lord. What? Verse 20. But the Lord selected you and brought you out of Egypt's iron furnace to be a people for his inheritance, as you are today. You know, this sounds like the gospel before the gospel. God did not save the Israelites because they were better than anybody else. He saved them because he chose them for salvation. Can I do black history in a verse? God did not save black people because we were so much better than white people. God saved black people because he decided to save black people. He decided to have favor on us. He decided to show his love and mercy and companion on us. And so that whereas other races might have died out or might have fallen out of existence, he decided to infuse his spirit within our ancestors to keep us going. It ain't just because we tall and big and strong. It's because God decided that he was going to take our people to where we are right now. Why did God love the Jews so much? I don't know, but he just did. Why does God love our people so much? I don't know, but he just does. And I say this because what this is about is that the focus should be on his heart, not on his skin. The message that's being communicated is Jesus' heart, is God's heart, not what his skin color or his favorite skin color was. Now, you're going to have to follow me on this one. I don't like getting into politics. Y'all know that. But I will say, just as a casual observer, a fly on the wall, I saw that a lot of black people were upset and are still upset with President Barack Obama. Not getting into the politics, which side of the aisle you are on, that's not where I'm going. Follow me. Many black people were upset with Obama because Obama had unknowingly signed a contract when he had become president that he was supposed to represent all black people and care for all black people in a special way. Let me say it like this. The image that many black people had of a black president was one who gave preference to black people. Maybe it wasn't unfair, but I mean, if you black, come on now, you're supposed to help a brother out, especially if you're the leader of the free world. You're supposed to look out for your sister, especially you that high up. That's what you're supposed to do. That's in the articles that somewhere in the fine print that he signed. You're supposed to look out for your people. Why? Because Obama being black meant that black people had a special connection to him. And he had a special connection with black people. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the nature of politics. It's all about representation. You know, the DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, y'all remember that? If you don't know what that is, that's where, in some companies they have a DEI director that makes sure that basically the business ain't being racist. That they got black people there, they got Asians, and they've got Latinos and Indians. They got to make sure that, A company that's normally all white has a little bit of flavor, sprinkled in. That's the nature of politics. Y'all realize why we have a black church? Because we had no representation in the white one. Hello? That's the reason. Look up the history of National Baptist. That is the reason. That's how we got started. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying that this is incorrect. I'm saying that this is just how the world is. We need representation, whether it's black or whether it's female representation or whether it's a regional representation or age representation. It's all about representation when we talk about politics. In fact, even what I was taught in seminary is that if I want more Mexicans in this church, I need to get Mexican leadership. If I want more Asians in this church, I need to get Asian leadership. That's what I was taught. So this is what's going around. Why am I saying all this? Because we subconsciously push our ideas of representation on God. If Jesus is black, this is where I'm going. If Jesus is black, some black people will finally have that special connection that they've been waiting for up top. If Jesus is black, there's a certain amount of preference that God should show African Americans. This is one of the main reasons why we got some black people trying to be Jewish. Because the way they read this Bible is that they think that Jews are the favorite one. The Jews are the one that God loves the most. So therefore, it's based on being Jewish, being the original Jews, and therefore deserving of the favor that God gives us. See, when we focus on his skin color, we take away from the glory of the story, which is his heart. This is what Moses is trying to say about idols. This is what I'm trying to say about idols. They take away glory from the story. What is the story? Is that we are saved by grace, not saved by race. Because 2,000 years ago, the invisible Son of God was born through the Virgin Mary. And yes, he was born Jewish. But he was born through the Virgin Mary, grew up and lived and did many things and taught many things under the Jewish law, under the Jewish culture. He was Jewish. However, his aim was not just the Jews. His aim was to come for all people. So Jesus, even though he was born as a Jew, died on a Roman cross for the sins of the whole world. So that anybody, whosoever would believe in him, should not perish, but have everlasting life. That it doesn't matter if you're this color. It doesn't matter if you're born in a certain place. But if you believe in Jesus Christ and what he has done on the cross for you, that your sins would be paid for, because sin ain't got a skin color and it don't need a skin color. But not only did Jesus die, he was buried. And on the third day, he rose again with all power in his hand. Jesus died for everybody, and Jesus rose for everybody. So Jesus is for everybody. And we are not saved because of how of what we do. We're not saved because of how great we are, or how dark our skin tone is, or who our mom or dad was. We are saved by grace. And that not of itself, it is of ourselves, it is the gift of God. Not of works, lest any man should boast. So as I close, just remember, I remember hearing this Kirk Franklin song, and I feel like it sums it up real nicely. You know, it doesn't matter what color he was, as long as his blood was red. I have come to testify to you today. You all have red blood. No matter your skin tone, no matter where you come from, no matter who your mom and dad were, no matter what percent black you are, or percent Mexican, or percent white, or percent Asian, or even percent Jewish. God loves you. And what we cannot do is let this beautiful story of the gospel get taken away because we think Jesus is black, or Jesus is white, or Jesus is Asian, or Jesus is Mexican. Because it doesn't matter what color he was, as long as his blood was red. So again, I warn you, that if you are holding on to a certain image of Jesus, you are committing idolatry. Does it mean you have to tear down the black Jesus in your house? No. But you shouldn't be praying to it. Does it mean that you got to throw away the Bible with the black Jesus in the cover? No. But you should understand that Jesus is bigger than this image of yours, that this is just art. Appreciate art. Don't worship it. Appreciate art. Don't worship it. There's nothing wrong with an artist's rendition of a black Jesus or a Greek Jesus or a Turkish Jesus. But don't worship it. Because if Jesus wanted you to know what he looked like, he'd have told you by now. But he did not, because it did not matter what color he was, as long as his blood was red.